Fun fact, the real reason Ash left it is because it sucks in competitive singles. No, but I do like Lapras as much as the next person. But unfortunately, it kind of peaked in high school, in the sense that it peaked in the gen that it was introduced. Lapras is a bulky Pokemon with a good stab type and an okay offensive move pool, meaning that back in Gen 1, before the physical special split, Lapras was indeed a good Pokemon. It even had one of the highest HP stats, along with Chansey and Snorlax as well. It was known for having very powerful blizzards because back in Gen 1, it had 90% accuracy and a 30% chance of freezing in the Japanese version of the games. It was kind of broken. People had a reason to use it. And meanwhile, it was good, it wasn't a Snorlax or Tauros level of good. So as you can imagine, when Gen 2 came out, people had less and less of a reason to use it. Plus, its special attack went from 95 to 85, which didn't help. But if we're going to be real, one of the biggest reasons it sucks is because of the ice part of its typing. Lapras was used as a bulky special attacker or a special wall. And if Avalugg and Articuno have taught us anything, say this with me, bulky ice types will usually have a hard time because the ice type is a terrible defensive typing. Ice only has one resistance, and that's to itself. It has 4 weaknesses to fighting steel, rock, and fire. So as a dual water ice type, it only has 2 resistances to water and ice, and 4 weaknesses to fighting rock, grass, and electric. Not great for a defensive Pokemon. But as an offensive typing, it's not bad. However, that's where its stats come in. Lapras' stats can really only be good on its defensive Pokemon because its special attack stats are really not impressive at all. And with a speed stat like that, it can't outspeed anything. When you're a slow attacker with lots of weaknesses, and not even a particularly strong attack, people are not going to want to use it. It's not even used in rain teams that much, which is kind of sad because one of its ability is Hydration, where it has its non-volatile status condition secured at the end of each turn if Rain Dance is active. Literally goes hand in hand in rain teams, and they don't even use it. I myself have only seen it used once, and that's it. As of now, it's in the NU tier, which stands for never used, so that's flattering. And the saddest part of it is that it doesn't even have one of those movesets that people make for it on Smogon. It's that unpopular of a pick. That's actually so sad. Montley and Yon Mega are even ranked higher. It's obvious that Lapras is only going to get worse and worse through the generations, so I decided to help Lapras out. I'm going to remind you of Lapras' base stat total of 535. That's not bad at all. For context, there are many Pokemon in the OU tier who have a lower speed stat total than that, just like Corviknight or Gliscor. So my goal is to redistribute its stats while keeping it at 535 as the base total. It still should look like a realistic Pokemon, so no unrealistic stat distributions, even if Pokemon is guilty of doing that sometimes. So this is what I came up with. We're going to give it a 120 base attack stat, 100 base defense stat, 50 special attack, 100 base special defense stat, and a 35 base speed stat. I like the stat distribution because it keeps the original essence of the bulky Pokemon who is a special attacker that Lapras was meant to be, meanwhile also making it more threatening. We don't really need a high special attack or a speed stat for what I have planned, so I'm pretty excited about this set because it's kind of unique. The first thing we're going to do is something that I've wanted to do for a very long time, which is get rid of the ice typing, since I feel that keeping it would be a bit of a burden. So what are we going to change it to? A good defensive typing like Fairy, Steel, or Ground? Wrong. We're going to give him a normal typing, just like Bibarel. And I know that doesn't sound good, but it'll start to make sense. And in my opinion, we need another water normal type Pokemon anyways. The only one that we have is Bibarel, and he hasn't been making any headlines anyways. So the next thing we're going to give it is Magikarp as its ability. Currently, there are a total of 4 evolutionary lines with this ability. As you can see, Pokemon is pretty stingy with this ability, and rightly so. Clefable has been OU since Gen 6. It would be hard to imagine a world where part of the reason for that isn't Magikarp. Magikarp is an amazing ability because passive damage can very easily win you the game, especially if you overlook it. So being able to ignore status condition, weather, etc. is really OP. But the thing about Magikarp is that we've only really seen it work on Clefable because the other Pokemon suck. Which, as interesting as Clefable is, that's kind of boring, because we know that Game Freak knows that this ability is OP, so they are only going to give it to Pokemon that cannot benefit from it that much, like Alakazam or Sigilyph. Therefore, we've never really seen an offensive Magikarp user that takes advantage of this ability. That's a complete waste of an awesome ability, since we should get to see it in a less stall-like context. And that's what my version of Lapras aims to accomplish. So moving on to its moveset, we're going to give it Facade, Extreme Speed, Recover, and Wave. And finally, for its held item, we're going to give it a Toxic Orb. So obviously Magikarp is good for the reasons that I previously stated. So that combined with its bulky stats would make it very reliable. But what it would do here is make Lapras' move Facade go from a 70 base power move to a 140 base power move, plus Stab, making it go all the way up to 210. Extreme Speed would be fantastic on her, because she's obviously really slow. Having a priority move she gets Stab on would be game changing, and because it's Stab, it would go from 80 to 120 power. Next is Wave Crash, where again, we would be taking advantage of Magikarp. Wave Crash is a 120 base power move, but it has recoil damage, where the user takes 33% damage of what it inflicted onto its opponent. So you don't have to deal with that recoil damage. And again, since it's stab, it would go from 120 to 180 afterwards. I also would like to give it Swords Dance, since it would make it even more menacing. Another move that I think would probably be good on this Pokemon would be Recover. Since it's already a bulky Pokemon, you can increase its longevity with that. Or you can add Swords Dance if you want to go full on the offensive side. I think it's safe to say that this version of Lapras would be great on rain teams. And just in case you're still doubting the normal water typing, first of all, it would still only have 3 weaknesses, Fighting, Grass, and Electric, of course. Well, it sucks that Fighting is a pretty common attacking type. Plus, it still does have 4 resistances to common attacking types, that being Steel, Fire, Water, and Ice. I mean, that's better than its 4 weaknesses and only 2 resistances that it had before. But maybe you're wondering from a more lore-like perspective, why does turning Lapras from a Water-Ice type to a Water-Normal type make sense? While I don't have an amazing counter to that, Nintendo does have a track record for giving Normal-type Pokemon with really animal-like features the Normal-type, and in my opinion, Lapras has that animal-like feature aesthetic. The Pidgeotto line, Oranguru, Terrapagos, Greedent, etc. So I think giving it a normal typing is still very in character, and it isn't as random as giving Palkia the water type or Alolan Executor the dragon type. So I do know that there are technical explanations for these typings, like Palkia is a water type because it represents the state of matter liquid, but in my opinion those justifications are weird enough for me to justify giving Lapras to water normal typing. Basically, if Nintendo can give Pokemon questionable typings, then I think I should be able to do it as well. Since I realized I wanted to make Lapras a genuinely powerful Pokemon, it took some time to make a set that really did have enough power behind it. It's no secret that in Gen 9, the metagame is one that's pretty offensive. There's no shortage of really fast and strong Pokemon, for example, Dragapult, Gouging Fire, Iron Valiant. But one of the reasons I think Lapras 2.0 has a chance in this fast-paced metagame is because there's also a place for bulky but strong Pokemon. That's been made very clear by Raging Bolt, Primarina, and Archaludon. I don't really know how to pronounce his name. I really had a lot of fun making this version of Lapras on steroids. It was fun to imagine a world where this friendly Pokemon could be an absolute beast. I went through a few different sets of Lapras before I landed on this one, and I even had a bulky Water Fairy Combine Moonblast Wish user, but I really like what we ended up with. I'm already in the process of making a script for my next video, which is about a certain green flying dinosaur that got really nerfed regarding its stats.